Good afternoon, and welcome to another wonderful webinar series from EYM and Access No Excuse. Today, we're going to have another wonderful interview and share some things with you guys so you can learn and grow in your careers. But first, I want to reintroduce our founder CEO, Miss Angelise Eccles Brown. How are you today?
How are you? I am well. I am so excited today. We have the absolutely fabulous Mr. Peter Anthony Andrews from Payco Global Entertainment. Mr. Andrews, welcome, sir. Welcome.
Give us 1 second, Mr. Andrews. Your mic seems to be muted. Let's get you unmuted.
There we go. Okay, there he is. Fabulous. Welcome, sir. Mr. Andrews from Payco Global Entertainment. Hi, sir. How are you?
I'm fine, thank you. Delighted to be invited to be part of what you're doing.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
And I was glad you're able to come because it's not just inviting powerful people, but people that understand what the needs are of students and children right now coming into industries and choosing career paths. So your guidance as being an industry professional and leader for quite some time allows them to really hold on to something tangible. So just could you share a little bit of your background? Because your background is, your resume, I could read your resume for 20 minutes. But that to allow them to really get a hold of the breadth of who you are. So what brings you with us today?
Wow. Well, I don't know. I'll start back at the very beginning. My career began in New York City 50 years ago. And I was fortunate enough to be hired by one of the most incredible, talented, brilliant actors, singer, statesman, producer, Mr. Harry Belafonte. And I was hired as a writer, producer at his company. And this was following my participation in a master's program at Yale Drama School. And prior to that, I got a degree at the Wharton School, University of Pennsylvania. I spent a few years with Mr. Belafonte's company, almost 4 years. It was incredible working with Lena Horne and the Lena Horne special we did for CBS. And I put a picture together with him and Sidney Poitier called Buck and the Preacher, a Western. We developed and put together Uptown Saturday Night, Let's Do It Again, and a host of comedies with the likes of Richard Pryor and the late, great Richard Pryor and Calvin Lockhart and people like that. So it was a wonderful experience. Then I was hired by NBC as a program executive, and I left and went to Hollywood, Burbank, and worked with NBC. And a couple of years after being with NBC, I had some good success there as a program executive and was made a vice president of development, primetime development. And I had a few successes with green lighting TV shows like Buck and the Preacher, Little House on the Prairie, Columbo, Quincy, Chips, Rockford File, Chico and the Man, Police Story, Police Woman. So those were my hits. So they were good. And I was the youngest vice president of any color at NBC in programming. I had development. I had an $80 million budget to develop shows and green light shows. And I went on from NBC to Columbia Pictures as the senior vice president. And then a few years later, I was made executive vice president and went on to MGM Studios as executive.
Wow.
So that was my Hollywood. Then after that, I opened my own company, Peter Andrews Company. That's why it's called Payco Global. And I have had a number of successes at Payco Global with pilots and pictures. I did a picture called The Importance of Being Earnest, based on the Oscar Wilde play. And I did it with an all Black cast of tremendous talents, the late, great Brock Peters, CCH Pounder, Chris Calloway, Oba Babatunde, Ren Brown, Daryl Roach. It's a wonderful, fabulous cast. And so that was a picture. And then I worked on a picture as an independent with the late, great Freddie Fields, who was kind of my mentor, and a picture called Glory, a Civil War picture we did in, I think it was 1990, 91. And
was there a young Denzel in that movie? I don't.
Yeah,
Just Denzel
and Morgan Freeman, Roger.
Wow.
Yeah. So there was a great cast, a great picture that enjoyed success at the box office. And it was, that's kind of it. Then I took a couple of years off. I had an opportunity to be made executive director of a newly formed museum, a Smithsonian museum, the National Jazz Museum in Harlem. So I did that for 3 years as an executive director and traveled all around and learned a lot about managing a museum, which was a unique, wonderful experience for me. And then I decided after that to teach and work at a high school in Philadelphia. Some friends of mine from the University of Pennsylvania that I knew in Philadelphia. We had a charter school that we formed for the underprivileged, so-called, the kids in Germantown and Philadelphia. So we opened a charter school and I spent 5 years as wearing a lot of hats. I was dean of admissions. I was teaching English, writing, television production. I was also the basketball coach for the girls and the boys, because at University of Pennsylvania, I was captain, most valuable player, Penn. I was all city at Jamaica High School in high school. And then I went on to Exeter Academy after Jamaica High. I spent a year up there prepping before I went to Penn, and I still hold their scoring records. I dropped about 500 points in 22 games up there. And so basketball. So I did a lot at the charter school 5 years. And after that, working with the high school kids, it was wonderful. I decided to go back into production, and Justin Brewer and I met. We started writing, producing pilots, and we managed to get a few pilots done. And he's been a great inspiration, and he keeps up with the business and being out of the business for those 8 years, actually 3 years at the museum and then 5 years in high school in Philadelphia. I missed a lot, but he bridged that gap because he's just up on all the trends, the people, and we got 2 or 3 pilots pending and about 4 or 5 feature movies that we've developed. And we're getting ready to launch a streaming company that we're going to be producing and distributing content. And I think we're going to probably be based in Riverside, California. So
Incredible.
Yeah, so that's been my 50 years, and here I am still at it. And fortunately, I have, as I said, Justin Brewer is my young genius that I work with, and I have some other wonderful people that we have that we're associated with. So it's a real pleasure.
What's so exciting about your history, sir, and why I am excited that you are with us is because you are a living legend. You are a legend. And it's important that our young people and young men of color know that individuals of color, young men of color, have achieved and have accomplished the many incredible tasks and made the accomplishments you have. So when they look in the mirror, it's like, okay, wow, he did it. Maybe I can too. And that's what you represent to me, Hope.
Well,
hope.
thank you. Well, I think the young people are doing it. Young people of color,
Yes.
both the men and the women. From what I'm looking around and seeing the talent. I think about the Debbie Allens and the Regina Kings and the Nemo Barnett's and Reuben Cannon is now back in LA working after going 10 years with the Tyler Perry organization and all of his incredible contribution. Reuben and I actually worked together. He was casting on Rockford File and a few other projects. So our relationship, Reuben and I go way back. But there's a wonderful group of people that have done so well. Michael Schultz is still here working, doing great stuff. Stan Lathan, dear friend. So there are a number of people. Kevin Hooks, of course. Bobby Hooks is retired, and he's an old friend from Negro Ensemble Company when I was with Belafonte in New York. And they were doing wonderful Broadway plays and all that. But I think that we need to understand, first of all, maybe I should say this first. I was going to save this for last in this interview, but I think the first thing that's so important to emblazon in the minds of our young people of color, the women and the men, is that we need to understand something that's so clear. We are not minority. We are the majority, and we are not inferior. We are the superior people.
Come on.
400 years of being brought here, the accomplishments of what we have achieved as women and men of color has not been recorded and made available to too many of our young people, even in my generation. And as as I have learned, because this internet is incredible. If we only look at that, it's easier to just walk every morning. You wake up and you say, you know what? I am the majority and I am superior. Once our kids get that clear, there's a new book out called Caste by Isabel Wilkerson, who's a Pulitzer Prize winning journalist from the New York Times, a Howard University grad, and just spectacular book that explains this whole concept of race that was an invented term by the slave traders. And it's permeated everybody's thought in this society for too long. There's a regrettable thing that too many people, not of color, it's almost in their psycho DNA that they are the superior majority people, and they're not. So we have to understand that in its context and move on. And we need to go after jobs in business affairs, publicity, casting, production management, continuity, camera, editing, legal, accounting, makeup, hair, stunts. There's so many jobs in film and TV, and marketing. Our kids, our students, my young Black kids, they're brilliant with the social stuff, the Facebooks and the social marketing. Well, they're ideal to be in the marketing. So many good movies fail because they're marketed incorrectly, because the people doing the marketing are not as bright as our kids. They got to let our kids in. No, that's a fact. I know that. Same thing with certain television shows, the promos that are cut for these shows. Our kids know how to do stuff like that. And I think the other thing is writing. Everybody wants to write, produce, direct, and be a star. Those are 4 great positions that certainly people who want to do that should aspire to do that. But I'm saying there's so many other positions also to look at. The other thing is writing. Writing has been a key for me. I memoed my way to the top at NBC. I summarized all the primetime shows that we had, the dramas. Drama was my area. And as VP
Hold on 1 second. I don't want to interrupt you, but I need to really break that down, because there's fields and subfields and behaviors that people don't know about. So was this a role that was assigned to you to summarize each episode? Was that assigned to you, or was that something you did as your own?
My first job, there were 4 program executives, and we reported to the vice president of current programming. That was Stan Robertson, happened to be an African-American, brilliant man. He wrote for the Sentinel. He was a tremendous executive. He started as a page at NBC and worked his way up. Stan was in charge of all the shows that are already on the air. So my first assignment was all the NBC had a lot of dramas. We didn't have, we had only, the comedies. We didn't have comedy. CBS was the comedy king in those days. This is in the 70s. So I was assigned Adam 12, which had been on the air for 5 or 6 seasons, to work with Jack Webb, who was great. We actually got along very well. He had another show that I was assigned to work on called Emergency. And then I also programmed Disney. Every Wednesday I would go look at the Disney library, pull stuff out and put it on Sunday night, The Wide World of Disney. So that was my initial job with shows. Ironside, another show that was in its 7th or 8th year, was already a hit. So I was, at each episode, I had to read the script, work with the executive producer and whoever was going to direct it, try to get some stars. And then I had to go to look at the dailies on the show. And then when it was delivered, it would be programmed. 4 or 5 weeks later, we had to send to TV Guide the synopsis of what the show was about, so that when you get TV Guide, it shows you what that Ironside episode said, as an example. So what I did was, all the other shows that we had on the air, the other dramas, I summarized all those shows. The other program executives didn't do that. I did it. So I created a newsletter, the primetime lineup for a particular week. But I would make jokes. Like I'd say, one Adam 12, there's a cat up the tree and a lady down the street got mugged. And don't worry, Rita Malloy saved the day and pulled down the cat. And then they found out who mugged the lady. So I would make jokes, like make it funny to summarize it. It got so popular when I sent it to New York to the president of NBC Entertainment, Larry White, and it went all the way up to Herb Schlosser, all the top people, this was before the internet. So they would just send it out in an overnight pouch to the New York people. It got so popular. If you weren't on my copy list, people started writing, Peter, can I get a copy of your weekly report? So that was the way I had visibility in New York. So it was back to writing.
Right. Okay.
Well, writing. I just want to make this point. I know writing became so important, and even titles for movies of the week and for pilots that we did. We always wanted to come up with catchy titles so that people would want to tune in a show. Writing became an important part of, as I say, I memoed mine. There's a book called Memo from David O., which is the biography of David O. Selznick, who produced Going with the Wind and MGM fame. In that book, he memoed his way to the top. I read that book before I came to Hollywood. And I use that
Great. But Mr. Andrews, what would you say to young people today? What would you say to 15, 16, 17, 18, up to 20, 22-year-old young people who feel they cannot, that opportunity, the opportunity that you had is not available for them today? How would you inspire and encourage them? What would you say to them, those who want to indeed make similar accomplishments? And it's a passion, and they have talent. They have the talent. What would you say to those young people?
Yeah, our talent is so abundant with the young. I know this from my experience years ago at the high school level in Philadelphia. They have to choose their battlefield. They have to decide. They're great with makeup and hair. Pursue that. Get so good at that, and let people know that you're good at that. That's why we have this. Do a website. Get a friend who does websites. Start promoting yourself. Take a book out of. Take a page out of the Spike Lee book. Go make that. She's got to have. Make that movie. Do a pilot. Go shoot your own stuff. You got cell phones now. Get creative. We write. Somebody has to write these incredible hip hop and rap songs. All those guys and girls are millionaires because of the music. So music is your thing. Do that. If you can get involved in the plays at your high school, if we ever get back to going to high school again, this pandemic is, obviates a lot of my suggestions. But if you're good at camera, photography, get a camera, use your own camera, take some great photos, put them up on the internet, write yourself again, website resume, join LinkedIn, get on Facebook, get out there, promote yourself. And again, take this attitude. We're the majority superior people, and you have to have that attitude. You need to write and ask for interviews. Go every week. There's always the film festivals, and they have screenwriting. Write a screenplay and submit it to see if you can win in some of all the film festivals around the world. Give out prize money, and they look at your screenplays. Write a screenplay. I was one of my courses I taught at Yale, and I created the Women Minority Writers Workshop at Warner Brothers many years ago, and it's still running. It's fortunately, the longest running and most successful writers workshop in the history of Hollywood.
And I'm going you there for 1 second, because that is so great to be able, because we talk about doing the work. And when we talk about moving people of color forward, to be able to create something that is long and lasting is highly important, because people think that these things aren't there. So knowing that you created this and this, what were you thinking when you created that? When you said, okay, this needs to happen in the now, and knowing how it would go in perpetuity, what was your thoughts when you created that?
Well, all you have to do is call the Writers Guild of America and ask them how many people of color they had in the Writers Guild in 1976, and they would be embarrassed to tell you less than 10. So as a vice president of NBC, I found that infuriating. So I said, I want to put some kids of color and women in the Writers Guild. And so I created this workshop. We met for 5 hours every Saturday for 10 Saturdays at Warner Brothers Studios. And the students were assigned to write an existing show on the air on any network. Okay. And they complete that script. And then I call that producer of whatever the show was, whether it was NBC, CBS, or ABC. In those days, it was only 3 networks. And I said, listen, one of my students has written a Little House on the Prairie. One of my students has written a Mork and Mindy. One of my students has written this. I want you to read the script, then consider them to join your staff. And they were so shocked at the quality of these students' material. I'm talking about Winifred Hervey, Kay Anderson, Bill Boulware. I can name my students who are now millionaires and went on and did very well. So that's how I did it. And you asked me, why did I did it? Because I was ashamed for the WGA, having little or few or no women or people of color in the Writers Guild who could go get jobs. So that's why I did that. So my reaction was purely based on the disappointment in the industry. Now, certainly Writers Guild has certainly improved their ranks. So has finally the DGA. I assisted my buddies getting jobs on Sanford and Son and Chico and the Man and other shows, and as directors. So where I could fill that void in terms of, as Maya Angelou, my dear friend, who's now going on to glory, I hired her to write a movie in 1978 called Sisters. She was the first woman of color to write a world premiere movie for a network. And Rosalind Cash, the late, great Rosalind Cash, Diane Carroll, starred in the picture, Irene Cara, and it was a big hit. It was a 31-share movie on NBC, and it was designed as a backdoor pilot. But the late Freddie Silverman chose not to pick it up as a series, so it didn't get on as a series. But I was very proud that Maya wrote it and did it. And but she always used to say, sometimes you got to take one step back to take 2 steps forward. And that's what, our kids need to understand. Pursue every angle, promote yourself, write something, direct a little movie in high school, produce something, get your friends. Somebody can do the makeup. You have friends that young people, guys and girls are great. Ladies are great at makeup, hair, all the wonderful hair designs and stuff that we do. Costuming, designing, do something with choreography or all these areas. If you show it in a short video or some presentation of your skills, you don't have to go to college. That's another thing. It's from Henry Fielding's great novel, Tom Jones, he's a line in there that says it's possible for the man to have been to the university and not know anything as it is for the man not to have been to the university and know a great deal. So the point is, don't get caught up in this, I got to go to college, I got to go to Ivy League, I got to do this and that. That's all questionable. You have certain talents, you pursue them. And again, that's just accentuating this inferiority complex that the majority people in power have brainwashed this culture to think that we as the people of color, as I said from the beginning, we are the minority inferiors. No, it's just the
Right.
opposite.
But
And we
what,
have
but what
to-
would you, but what would you say? Sorry for interjecting, but what would you say to the young person who looks at your bio and your track record, your education, your articulation, and they would look at that and say, okay, given his skills and talent, what part of that did he pick up having gone to college? You know, what would you say?
I can't say, listen, I have a sister, Lily. I don't know whether she's listening to this or not. Older sister. And she was a great student. My dad and my mom, my dad was, he always said to us, the only thing they can't take away, meaning the white folks, can't take away from you is education. You have to do well in school. And so all of us, my mom had 6 kids, and we all were, I was in the middle. My 2 older sisters and older brother, they all excelled in school because that's what my dad pushed us to do, and they made me do it. My sister had me reading and writing, printing and reading when I was 3 years old, before I even went to kindergarten. And so, I was fortunate that then my dad died when I was 13 and had a younger brother and sister. So it wasn't easy. But the only thing I knew to get out of South Jamaica, 2 blocks from the 40 projects, the notorious 40 projects, where I spent my first 16 years playing in the playground in the community center, was basketball. And so, and baseball. So I became, sports got me out. I was fortunate enough that I could get out. And in those days, they finally opened the doors to guys of color to get D1 scholarships who were good athletes. That was the beginning of, so I was at the right time, right place. So I had 31 D1 scholarships to go to college. So my college didn't cost anything. So that was and a lot of people, but everybody's not a basketball player or track or baseball.
Right, exactly.
But
all right, so I have to ask, because if you look at, you went to some of the top schools, if you look at your resume, you have worked with the top of elite for 50 years in this industry, right? So this is, I refuse to believe that this is by accident. So there's certain things that we may not realize. There's certain things that you've obviously been able to identify your passion, what I like to call living in your wealth. You know what your passion and your talents are, and you're able to exist in those to perform excellently. So we got kids at home now that think they don't have a passion. They haven't found their talent. So how did you pinpoint that, or how would you tell them how to shift their mind to finding that point of passion for themselves?
Part of the responsibility and hope is not necessarily the kids so much. When I was 12 years old, a man named Herman Daniels, whose wife was vice chancellor at Hampton University and president of Chicago State, Mr. Daniels came to Jamaica, Queens. He graduated North Carolina A&T. He was a superstar track person, and his roommate was Al Addles, who was a great basketball player who went from A&T to play in the NBA. Also played with Wilt Chamberlain. He fed Wilt Chamberlain that night he got 100 points. Anyway, Herman Daniels was my summer school, junior high school basketball coach, and ran the community center program at the 40 Community Center. He showed me one day his scrapbook from A&T College, and he said, "Pete, this is what you can do. You can go to college. They have scholarships for athletes." He said, "You're a good athlete." And so baseball, basketball, he taught me paddle tennis, everything. And I saw then. So let me get, and Cecil Watkins, who was director of community affairs for the NBA, he put the black referees in the NBA. He sent Tiny Archibald and so many great basketball players for 60s and 70s and the 80s to college. I was one of them. He sent me to prep school for a year and then arranged my contract to play for Real Madrid professionally in Spain. Cecil is gone now to glory, but I had mentors. What I'm getting at is we need all these wonderful 35, 40, 50-year-old successful people of color in different fields to put it back in and reach out to give the other half of what I say it takes. The kids have to come and say, you know what, I'm going to seek a mentor. I'm going to seek, at the community center,
Yes.
or maybe
Yes.
the Urban League or the NAACP, or people need to we need to help each other and pull each other into the fray of success and instill in our young folks the will to win.
Yes.
It's the will to succeed, because it's there.
Yes.
And it's true. We have to go against all the negative stuff that's presented, saying we don't want you, it's segregated, and the unions have to be part of it. The agencies have to be part of it. The networks are reaching out now. The studios are saying we want inclusion, we want diversity. Well, all that's great chit chat and talk, but the name of the game is concrete programs that really do it. And that's what needs to get done. And I think all the existing successful people of color, like what Harry Belafonte and Sidney Poitier and all those guys, they reached out. They made a lot of careers for a lot of people, too many for me to name. And I watched it happen. And it was a proud time for me, and that helped. So all along my way, Herman Daniels, I was 12. Cecil Watkins in high school and playing in AAU tournaments for his teams, and going on and arranging for me to go to prep. I never heard of prep school till Cecil said, you're going to go to Exeter Academy. Exeter, okay. And then he said, you're going to go to University of Pennsylvania. Then you're not going to make it in the NBA. You can't shoot jump shots. You're not that good. You're not Stephen Curry. So you can go play in Europe. He arranged for me to go play in Europe. I didn't go. I was a nominated Rhodes Scholar, and I had a fellowship to go to Yale drama. So I took Yale drama because I had to be close to home. My dad had died, and I had a kid brother and a kid sister, and I didn't want to be too far away from my mom. So I went 75 miles north to New Haven, Connecticut, to Yale, as opposed to going to take the Rhodes Scholarship and go to England. I didn't do that, but I don't regret that. Anyway, I had mentors, I had people. So it wasn't me. I had no idea about prep school, college. I just knew I wanted to get somewhere and get out of South Jamaica. That was really my first big quest. I never took a film course. I didn't. And so after Yale drama, it was theater. I love theater. So I got involved in that, but I hadn't done any theater. All I did was play basketball in college and figure out how to graduate. So I never took a film course. And I produced, directed, and written film and TV and all that, but it was on the job training.
Well, one of the things I think is important, and I think it's a summation also of what you're saying, that, and a point we cannot miss, given young people, and that is the importance of education. I know for me, coming out of Tennessee and Mississippi and graduating from Cornell, I cannot tell you how many doors Cornell opened for me, mentioning Cornell, having it on my resume.
No question.
The thing is, but Cornell could not keep me in. I mean, I had to do the work. I had to learn the craft, learn the trade. And so I think that's really, really important. I think that's a part of what you are saying as well. So I don't want young people to misunderstand. Education is extremely important. It is at the top of the list because, and I think you'll agree with me, Mr. Andrews, and that is, and if you could elaborate on this, and that is about in terms of getting in the door, but also no matter what you do, even music, writing, if you're selling out of your car, education is involved. You are learning something. And I think that's what you're saying. Learn the craft, right? find a way to get engaged, and you will learn and eventually develop. What will develop is that talent and what it is you have a passion for. But please know that education is so important. And I thank you for sharing that, sir.
Oh, I agree with everything you said. And I didn't mean to earlier on imply to our youth that don't pursue education. I just wanted to say that that's important, but the big pursuit is a craft, is a marketable
Yes.
skill first, while you're also doing it. I think that
Yes.
one of the, and listen, I think it's great if you can get into an Ivy League school, a great school, fine. I think the wonderful thing that's changing finally, and we look at soon to be hopefully our elected vice president. I know the executive vice president of human resources at CBS, Isabel Wilkerson, the great lady. I hope everybody, all these kids, go get CAST, the book, CASTE. It's a New York Times bestseller.
Okay.
All these are Howard University graduates. I have a sister who graduated Howard undergrad and Howard Law School. My sister-in-law is Howard Medical School. Her daughter is Howard Dental, and Plummy Fletcher and Christy and Dallas. Anyway, so Howard University, and now the basketball superstar kids are starting to say, you know what? I'm not going to Duke. I'm not going to Kansas. I'm not going to UCLA. I'm not going to those schools for 1 or 2 years before I go to MBA. I'm going to go to Howard for a year or two.
Yeah.
And get and study there and be part of that. And as soon as my big dream is, I want to see Howard or North Carolina A&T or Southern or any of the great historical Black colleges in the Final Four and NCAA basketball and win. That's one of my dreams and passions in my lifetime, to see that. So back to what I'm saying, we have the thing is, we have to pursue our education wherever we can get it, community college, whatever. But we need to be clear that that's a path as we're developing our marketable skills. The problem we have to work against is these people who design curriculums. The problem I have, first of all, whoever decided to take away cursive writing in school, to me, it's intellectual genocide for our kids. How do you write a nice letter to your mom or your dad on Mother's Day or Father's Day, or to your boyfriend or your girlfriend, and write? How do you sign your name? How do you learn how to sign your name? What do we go back to X? What are they doing in these schools? You print your name? I don't. So I'm not sure, but I know that they need to adjust the historical curriculums. They need to start teaching writing, creative writing from first grade. They have computers now. Let the kids start writing stories. We don't. I didn't write. I went to high school. I didn't write anything in Jamaica High School. Maybe my senior year, I wrote something. I didn't have to learn to write till I got up to Exeter, and I had to write 5,000 words every week and turn it in to get through that curriculum.
Incredible.
So people, so these people designing the curriculums, and to me, are short-sighted. I don't know what color they are, but they're definitely myopic midgets. A double positive, a myopic midget.
All right. But Peter,
sorry.
To piggyback off of that, first of all, I did my freshman year of high school at
Don't let me
Emerson.
know. When you edit this, please take out myopic midget. I sound like
don't you dare take that out. No, don't you dare. Keep that in.
Oh, that's definitely staying. That's definitely staying. But I want to
designing our curriculums. That's
I wanted to one stop and first of all remind everybody, thank you again for joining the EYM Access No Excuse webinar. And to take from what you're saying, we at EYM are doing just that, changing those curriculums. And
That's right. We are.
And really taking this opportunity to transition not only us through this COVID period into the virtual space, but actually taking it as an opportunity to update education as we see it. Because not just to take a classroom system that's antiquated and put it in a digital space, but to say it needs to be applied for a new age and a new opportunity and new needs of adults coming out of schools.
Yes.
And I think it's highly important that you said that it does impact who you are as an adult. Just the lack of of knowing that this is seems to be a dismissible skill set, which still has an implicit interaction with how we interact with each other, right? People still understand, oh, you wrote me a note. Oh, look at your handwriting. You cannot, you have to appreciate the beauty of it and the
Yeah.
craft of it. But looking at that, I want to double back into a couple of things. When you spoke about having mentors, do you have any programs right now that you know of that kids should actually access where they can be apprentices?
Justin Brewer and I have created an apprentice program that's a comprehensive program for young people to actually produce and deliver completed television shows.
Awesome.
And yes, and they will be streamed on a network that we've created. I can't elaborate too much on it for proprietary reasons. But we're going to be based, it looks very much like we're going to be based out of out of the University of Riverside, California at Riverside, with some other young African-American gentlemen who are stunningly brilliant producers,
Awesome.
website designers, and they've already put in motion much of the infrastructure. And we're bringing the completion of the whole concept, and it's going to be a national program, and there will be a lot of jobs that we're creating.
It's incredible.
But it's not. But see, going to cooking school is great, and you cook a pie and you take it home and you eat it. That's fine. But you go to cooking school and you open a bakery, then you've succeeded. So we want.
Yes.
We don't.
Yes.
We're not teaching anybody to do something and then go get a job somewhere. They're going to complete projects with their credits, and their stuff is going on the air. So they'll see who the hairdresser was, who the makeup, who the assistant director, who the director, who the producer, who the associate producer, who wrote it, all those people. And we will have an incredible amount of majority of color superior kids. Back to my philosophy. So there we are.
And I do want to add, I have actually been introduced to a couple of the individuals you're referring to that you'll be working with. And you are absolutely right. They are incredibly talented. And not only that, they're very kind young men. They're very, very kind, very
great
warm.
Parents. Family men, great parents.
They're really, really great. I've spoken to a couple of them, and they've been working with me when they have the time. And I have to admit, they are just incredible family men.
Bruce, I didn't know. I just met Bruce today, and he knows, and so he's going to be recruited by Peter Anthony Andrews. And when I lean on a brother, I lean. See, because I grew up in South Jamaica and lived in Harlem, so I don't fool around,
Well, I don't know. Okay, but hold on, Mr. Andrews. Bruce is my heart now. Just don't take him from me. Let's share him, okay?
Well, I don't know
if we can share him.
Well, I don't know when he sees the paycheck I signed for him, he may have to say goodbye. But then again, we'll just we can discuss it. He can play on both teams.
To moderate the discussion between the two. I will totally be glad to moderate. This is going to be like pay-per-view. These two people. I know Bruce is watching now. He's like, I can't wait. But before we get to Bruce, there is a crowd of people asking. First of all, I have some young people just ask, what does a producer do? Now, I'm going to limit it to in the film and television space, because that title has so many different terms depending on what industry.
Well, film producers usually find the property, whether it's a book translated into screenplay, they find the property. They then put that package together. They say, let me call up so-and-so, the right director to direct it. And then talk to the director, who do you think we should get to star in the cast? And he puts the producer, he puts the package together. And he gets his production manager and his line producer, they put the budget, and then he takes it into the studio or if it's an independent, to the investors, and presents the package. And then the money comes in, and then everybody gets hired and they go to work. Then his job is essentially in the background. The director and the writer and the cast, they shoot the picture. Then the picture has to be post-produced. The producers also presumably, and with whoever financed the picture, whether it's a studio or independent, arrange distribution and works on the marketing of the picture. So that's the producer's job, the overall captain of the team, organizer, person, woman or guy in charge of making that happen. That's film. Executive producers are people who usually finance it or help him put it together, and they always want to have their name on the screen, even if they didn't put the money up. They got a star, and they said, "Well, I'll give you the star, but I want an executive producer credit." You know. And in TV, one of my classmates from the University of Pennsylvania, and someone I gave one of his first writing jobs to, is Dick Wolf. Anyway, Dick is the most prolific executive producer.
I'm sorry. I have to stop.
1 second.
I'm not trying to drop names.
Dick Wolf. You can turn your TV on right now on network and just wait for his name to pop up.
Right. But Dick Wolf is the greatest exec producer. But I work with Steve Cannell. Stevie Bochco was my story editor on Columbo, and we did a show called Banachek. The late great Steve Bochco, one of the kindest, sweetest guys in the world. So was Stephen Cannell. So, but executive producers, showrunners, the exec producer in TV is the person, the woman, what's Sandra Rhimes? They're the creators. They're the supreme allied beings of the life and destiny of a TV show. Producers are the people who do all the real hard work and heavy lifting day to day, and whatnot. And associate producers are the people who work directly with the producers. So that's the big difference. Executive producers in television are the key positions. And in feature film, it's the producer. So I hope that answers your question. Is that pretty good, Justin?
I think that was fantastic. Now, I want to first thank you for supporting marginalized communities and outreach programs like us, like EYM. But why I want to ask you, because we're about to wrap up, because I know I can keep you all day. I will be calling you after this because, yeah, I've had too much fun. But why did you decide to take action and become a supporter of an at-risk youth program like this one in this webinar series? What made you say, take out of your extremely busy schedule to say, I'm going to make this choice right now and answer this call and respond and come out?
Yeah.
Purely selfish reasons. Every time I look at a show and I see Bill Boulware or Kay Anderson or Winnie Hervey's name roll across the screen, or anyone that I've helped in this business to move forward in whatever capacity in my career, that's my pay. That's when I feel great. And so that's the selfish part of it, that seeing someone succeed that you've mentored or helped or created a path, to me is a terrific. Listen, I see my credits and I cash my checks, and the money I make in this industry, and that's all great and fine. But there's nothing like seeing great developing and nurturing and teaching people who go on to greatness. To me, that's a reward that you cannot buy, and so that's what I like to do.
Well, I want to just make certain that I thank you from the depths of my heart. Thank you so very much for sharing. Thank you for your support. Thank you for your encouragement. Your talent is just impeccable. Your history, your track record. And I just hope that all of the young people who are going to get an opportunity to hear you, because we are going to make certain that we get this out to as many young people as possible, but that in hearing you, they will be encouraged. They will be encouraged. I thank you, Educating Young Minds. Thank you. And I am just so looking forward to, sir, to learning and growing and just continuing. If there is the possibility, given what you are working on, the project you are working on, and you're in need of young people, don't forget to give Educating Young Minds a call, because I can help. I can find young people. We've got a lot of young people.
Well, let me just say this. The answer is absolutely. And the other reason that I did this is reviewing your material, seeing the people that you've been able to gather, and your work, your body of work in moving this incredible concept forward into a reality, a concrete reality, and you personally.
Thank you, sir.
I'm so proud to work with you and support you and Young Black Mind in any way I can. You've already set the standard. It's the gold standard of helping our kids get where we want them to go and achieve. So I could not say no when you, Justin, said, "Oh, you got to talk to this lady, Miss Angeles." And I said, "Angeles, who she thinks she's the queen of LA or something? She got a name named Angeles," jokingly. And he said, "Well, yeah, she went to Cornell." I said, "Cornell, kid, we used to whip their butts up and down the palestra. And when I played at Penn, we couldn't wait to go up to Ithaca and kick some Cornell booty on the basketball court."
Okay. Before we get to school rivalries, I do want to thank you both. I do want to thank you both for being so incredible today. We may have to do this again if it fits with both of your schedules to have you both with us. But I also want to say thank you guys for coming out, and thank you all for coming and attending the EYM Access No Excuse webinar. We will see you next Saturday, 12 p.m. PST. Until then, stay safe, stay smart, find your passion, and study hard.
God bless.
Okay, give me my mask. We got to win.